Hey guys, I have Julian Janik on with me today. He's a director of marketing at Marketing 360. And what I wanted to talk to him about today was really the small window when a lead converts and how you can make that more convertible. So this is post-conversion strategy for your thank you page and the email automation that hinges off of that to help nurture your leads through the sales process. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely, JB. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, one thing that I like, Julian, that I know you're a big advocate of, is the email automation just kicking off right from that very first sign up. So whether somebody signs up to get a free quote or get additional information, or maybe it's an online purchase, whatever it is, you have that initial capture on your website of some sort. And I love how you really just push the idea of having a beautiful thank you page, you know, in combination with an email that starts building that trust right away and then starts nurturing that, you know, if it's a lead, through the buying cycle so that they buy. What are some tips on that, you know, in terms of just taking advantage of that, or maybe just further sell the point of the value of starting that nurture campaign just right out of the gate?
Fill out your own form every 2-3 months. You might have new ideas that might come, but experience what your clients are experiencing. You know, kind of act like you use your own product. If you fill out your own form, you're going to identify something that was underwhelming or a poor experience right there. And you're going to understand, oh, at this point, let's say at the thank you page, if you're starting to get a lot of FAQs at that level from when you call the lead up for the first time, address it on the thank you page. Address their concerns, right? I think one of the biggest things that I have to remind clients, especially in certain industries, is that they're going to be filling out multiple forms. So which means they're going to see multiple thank you pages and multiple thank you emails. Who has the most impressive can tend to be filtered out and already be chosen above those. A lot of the times that client's decision process is happening right there. You know, do they trust this business? So what I tell them is that, like, the thank you page in that whole thank you email experience can actually raise your lead close rate if you are impressive enough, right? Most industries are built on 2 out of these top 3, right? It'll be time, cost, or quality. And, you know, you're going to get 2 out of those 3 depending on your industry that your clients are going to be really focused on. Well, address those big 2 or big 1 right there on that thank you page as best as possible. Throw an infographic about the quality, throw an infographic about the cost, and a matrix between you and your competitors. So big decisions are made during that email and that thank you page process. So just test it out every 3 months. I think a lot of times we just kind of let it sit there and collect dust, especially if we have success, right? Things are working well and we never really revisit it. You should put a calendar invite every 3 months to test out your own form.
I love that. And really, I like the idea of continually checking your thank you page and your thank you email, because you're right. There's new questions that came along the way. Maybe an FAQ needs to be updated. There's just other information that's come about in that maybe 6-month window that should be included on that page. That's pretty powerful. With the email, so you have the thank you page that's beautified. It has all the information that's really answering the person's questions before the salesperson even reaches out to them. Do you put that same information also in the email, essentially, so that if they didn't have time to review the thank you page, they at least have that in their inbox? Or does the email have, you know, additional different information?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. A lot of times when you don't want them to come back to the information, for instance, sometimes if you want them to save it, if you're offering a free PDF and a free coupon, that definitely needs to be in the email, right? Because at least it's saved somewhere that they can bring it back up. I always kind of tell my client and remind them that the thank you page is somewhere you're not going to want to resend them. The thank you email is something that you are. So what difference in content is that, right? Usually on the thank you landing page, the first thing I do is address the number 1 concern that I think a lot of people do when they fill out an online form. And that's that their email actually, or that their contact form actually went somewhere. The scariest thing is that they went into some, let's say, digital purgatory, blacklist or something, and you say, success, we've received your inquiry. I think that definitely helps someone's first concerns is like, okay, is someone going to call me back? And then I address on the thank you page, when they can expect a callback, what's the process look like, and tips to get the process more smooth. On the thank you email, yes, it has a lot of the similar things, but probably it would have, like I said, the things that they'd probably want to save, the coupon, and then probably their own details. A lot of the times too, the thank you email can pull in information from our CRM list, and they're going to want to make sure that you have their name. It looks professional when you can call them by name. You can tell them the time that they requested and the service they requested. So a lot of the times the thank you email, I try to add as much customizations as possible because that shows a lot of professionalism. So that's usually the differences I say between the landing page and the email.
Makes sense. And I would imagine, so you have that initial email, but then also, you know, this is put them into the list. So now the list is continuing to grow every time somebody fills out your form. But what kind of nurturing would you do then? Would you follow up with additional pieces of maybe the sales process or customer reviews or things to build trust? You know, what would be maybe some of the top 2 or 3 things that you would include after that initial thank you email to send them, to build them, and kind of nurture them through that process and assist the sales rep a little bit further, maybe over that next week to month?
Absolutely. I think what's really powerful is telling a salesperson if they opened up the email and if they came back. And on the thank you page, you can use tracking codes to see if they came back to the website. So the email platform can tell you the open rate and if they open. Really, to be honest, though, is that what you're going to want to see is then if you put a UTM code, you can retarget these guys as well. So if they opened up your newsletter and the thank you page, you can send them more information and stay in front of them even further. Quite honestly, if they filled out your form, they're pretty far down that conversion funnel. And once they're at that bottom, you should probably start hitting them with some other types of information. But most people didn't know that you can retarget the people who actually opened the thank you email. I think that's very powerful. Another thing that I'd say is, in terms of emails after the thank you email, is updates. Quite honestly, I always said this, is that everyone's favorite thank you page is probably the Domino's pizza tracker, because it tells you the next steps, right? It's telling you the progress at where you are at in this process. So usually you're at step 1 or step 2, you reached out to us, here's the next step. Someone will come to your house and they'll audit. And then giving them the light at the end of the tunnel, right? That like, well, what's the 5th step that makes them happy? Why did they fill out that form? And I think a lot of people just want to know that next step. For instance, even when you kind of get to know where your package is, right? So a lot of times, anyone who has a long scheduling period in between the thank you page and their service, let's say moving, for instance, they're usually scheduling it out 2-3 weeks because someone knows that they have to move at that time. Well, other emails can include upselling. Do you move? Do you also pack? Do you also offer storage, right? And then you can give them reminders up into that point to even start upselling the next products. With the roofing, do you want the gutters, right? And things of that nature. So a lot of people don't realize that after the thank you page, you're actually not done selling. You haven't got the credit card swipe, you haven't really finished the project yet. And quite honestly, you're not even done with all the services. So most people don't look at it as its own salesman that can upsell. And those emails usually come after. So I kind of go, oh, what are the add-ons? And I think letting them know after the thank you page what those add-ons are is a fantastic use of email after the thank you email.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And actually, that just makes me think email really in the format we're talking about it is like the virtual assistant of the sales rep, because as soon as you convert, you get a beautiful thank you page. And an email, it's almost like an assistant emailed them, hey, here's the FAQs, here's our reviews, our awards, here's why you should go with us, here's next steps in the process. And then the salesperson engages and does their thing. But then throughout that week or month or whatever your sales cycle is, that sales rep is going to do what they do, but they're also getting these emails from their virtual assistant saying, hey, have you thought about this upsell? Have you thought about this next step in the process? And I bet you, a lot of the leads would actually even bring those things up with the sales rep. I know from experience, sales reps have a lot of things to think about. And a lot of times I don't think about every possible scenario and upsell. And it's nice when the actual lead says, hey, I saw that you do this.
Right.
Is that something you can help me with? And they're like, oh, absolutely. So I think that's just a great point that you made on that. And I think if we all think about it that way, there's no reason we shouldn't take advantage of email right out of the gate, even if it is a small list that you have.
Absolutely. It's a meatball done home plate. They call in, they're more educated on your services, and they're interested in the plethora of what you can provide. So the next step, I think, too, is I just remembered I did this very successfully for one of my largest clients was you create a funnel for even each salesperson. So now they filled out the form, a salesperson reaches out, and if that salesperson had a really good job and or a really good relationship, and maybe it just wasn't that time to make that sale yet, they can move through the CRM that person to their own list to follow up with later and get them into their own personal automations. So I always thought that was really cool, is that using the CRM to even manage your salespeople's lists and move them around, right? From general lead to then kind of warm lead or cool lead, or maybe someone else can pick up this lead if, they're like looking into the older leads. So I always love that lead flow.
I like that because you can really make it personal then, because a lot of times if you receive an email from a brand, that's not as engaging if it came from Julian, and maybe Julian's picture is literally in the footer of the email, and the from address is from Julian. So when I respond, it goes directly back to you. That's a lot more powerful to me. So I like that concept of maybe the general track, and then they kind of go maybe into that personal sales reps track after that and get more information, because, it just keeps you top of mind. And then when they need the product or service that you sell, they pull up their inbox and email you back, and boom, the sales is re-engaged. So I think that's a pretty
Absolutely.
powerful tip.
Yeah, they could even I had like an e-commerce client that was the sales guys were even making their own codes. So they would send those out like, here's a free 500 rewards, whatever, or, 20% off or something like that out of my sales rep's name or something like that. So definitely helps with the rapport building, right? And especially if it's over 500 people, these sales guys to organize that and send the individual emails, it's really easy for them to use the platform to just send the emails through their own list.
Absolutely. No, it's really good. Well, really appreciate the power tips today. Super helpful. And thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you, JB. I appreciate being here. Thank you.